Welcome to William Steele, True Crime and Steele a Spotlight Television. This is William Steele with my special guest host, Frank Lordi, author of Framed Innocence. Now, Frank was a county commissioner in Mahone County, Ohio. Wrote a book about his experiences trying to root out corruption, and his adversaries, who he unseated in office, turned it around on him, put him in prison. Frank, thank you for coming back to the show.
I love it. I enjoy it, and getting out the other side that half of this country doesn't hear the right news. They hear the wrong news, the far left news. They need to hear the right side. Then they can compare and then see which one they believe has the most truth in it and the most justice, and that goes after corruption and crime.
Yeah,
That's how
I
I
noticed.
feel, and I think that there's a lot of hate for Trump. And I just heard something recently when people said, some people say, I don't care, I hate him. But if you ask them what they think about Biden's son, and all that fiasco that's going on between the both of them, ask them what's going on at the border, ask them what's on with crime, ask them what's going on with inflation every time they go to grocery store, those things don't matter. They just hate Trump. Is that right? Well, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? Not what people are telling you. Check something out and verify all the
Right.
stuff they're bringing forward. How are you going to learn and grow if you're just hearing one side?
You know what I find hysterical is that many of the Democrats that actually do pay attention to the facts and see the tens of millions of dollars that went to the Biden family from our enemies, from China, from
Yes.
illegally. I mean, completely illegally through his son Hunter and whatnot. When they see those facts and the level of corruption, um, a lot of especially what's going on the border, like you have, I think it's 16,000 more group coming in. You have illegal aliens taking chainsaws and blowtorches to the wall and putting chains on it and trucks and pulling the wall down and pieces off of it to make bigger holes for crowds to go through. None of that went on under Trump. Now, what I've learned, and even this is watching both sides. This was on MSNBC, who, as we know, NBC and MSNBC are nothing but the PR branch of the Democratic Party. Okay, let's face it. They just are. Everybody's analyzed it. It's always positive for them, no matter what they're doing wrong, and horrendous for Trump or anybody else who's a Republican or conservative, no matter how minor or if they have the facts wrong, even they'll run with the story. And when they get the facts right, they rarely correct. They rarely correct anything. So many Democrats are leaving the Democratic Party right now, and they are literally not just leaving for another candidate. Many of them are becoming Republican now because they see they might not believe with some of the key issues like the Democrats. I mean, the Republicans believe, the same-sex marriage, abortions, and all that. But fundamentally, they know the country was run way better under Donald Trump. And despite his personal, failings, and we could say that about anybody, he was an incredible president. He's a doer. He got things done. He knew how to negotiate. He knew how to be strong. I've seen him shake hands of political leaders, including Putin, and then he grabs their hand firmly. He'll grab him by the elbow and he'll do this and pull him towards him. Like he's got this body language where he takes control of a scene. There was another thing where I think it was some big shot in the European Union or Germany, and that guy had stood briefly in front of Trump, and Trump grabbed his arm and threw him behind and went like that, and then it went like this. So everything about him is like, takes control, gets things done, and you know what? Love him or hate him, he got things done. And gas was low. People were making a lot more money, and we didn't have all these racial problems that the Democrats constantly stir up. Frank, I love
But
also that a lot of these rappers and people that normally because we were both incarcerated. I did 18 years for nonviolent crime. A lot of people in prison used to hate the Republicans. But because Trump released so many people from prison and started loosening up on the marijuana laws, they've really turned the corner and they see that they really support Trump. And I see these rap songs out now that are like, F the Democrats. You've been lying to me all along. You're the ones that they started the 85% truth in sentencing law back in 1994. A Democrat, which is Joe Biden, he got out there giving speeches calling blacks super predators. I mean, and that they belong in prison for, 10 or 20 years for a piece of crack and all that. He was making the most horrendous racist statements Why would anybody of any kind of race, want to vote for this man? Anybody, no matter what race you are. But people have turned the corner. They're starting to educate themselves, and I'm glad a lot of them are bailing out of that Democrat Party because there's nothing but a sinking hole.
Yeah, I believe you. You're right on. Can you imagine uh, if Trump had a strong attorney general? Most people don't know probably that the uninformed voters, which is maybe half the country, and they only go by advertisements, commercials, and stuff like that,
Right.
and the falsehoods from the agencies you mentioned, along with CNN. And it's like if he had a powerful attorney general, he would have got a lot more done and a lot more accomplished. And I believe that he's going to win. And this next time around, he's going to be more careful and more thoughtful to make sure he has the right people around him that has and believes his beliefs and what he wants to implement, because it's all for the betterment of this country, the protection, our defense, our military, our borders. It's just his heart was in the right place, but sometimes he didn't speak exactly right. And then when they put their twist on what he said, it makes it that much more worse.
Right.
So I think we're in for this. And you know what, Bill? I ran into at Best Buy. The young gentleman that waited on me was 20 years old, and I was just curious, checking him out a little bit, And as I'm talking to him, he says, "Oh, my dad told me about you." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, he told me about your case. He remembers what happened to you." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, I hear this all the time. That kid got railroaded." But if I was amazed at, the more I talked to him, the more I saw that he had a grasp of what's going on. And his dad is a professor. Now, the reputation they have in general, but he was good. He was right on. He called his dad while I was at Best Buy and says, "Dad, you ain't going to believe who's here with me." And he said, "Who?" And he says, "Frank Lordi." He says, "Oh, tell Frank Lordi I said hello. He's a good man." And I said, "Well, tell him I said thank you." And I talked to him, and I left this young man with this. His name was Kent, Kent, like Clark Kent. And I said to him, "You know what I could tell about you?" Because I'd asked him some questions about what's going on in the country, and he was on top of everything. And I was just amazed because he was a young guy. And I said, "You know what I know about you? You were raised up the right way." And he goes, "Yes, I know that. Thank you." And so that's what's missing today, Bill. The
The
tutor, the
ability, the
tutor.
ability for critical thinking was taken away from the students that go to these Ivy League left-leaning liberal schools. It just was. They're spoon-fed a bunch of, excuse my French, crap. In my opinion, opinions here, my opinion and Frank Lordi's opinion, they don't necessarily reflect the opinions of YouTube. But I'll tell you what, they're fed a bunch of nonsense, and then they parrot it back, and then they march on behalf of a terrorist group. I call Hamas ham ass on all over social media, and then Instagram tried to shut me down for that because I put the word ham with a hyphen ASS. And I said, well, if the cowards from Hamas would just give up all the hostages, Israel would immediately stop hostilities because they want the hostages back, every last one of them. Even if you kill them, they want the bodies back. They want them back. And they're not going to stop. They said, we will never stop till every one of them's returned to us. Now,
Yeah.
the ones who, the Hamas guys who won't surrender, guess what? There's something called the Mossad. And I will guarantee you that the Israeli Mossad, I don't even know how many members they have. Let's say it was 3,000. They're probably stepping up recruitment to 50,000 agents. And they have a gloves off approach to dealing with enemies that try to kill Jews or Israelis. Now, this is their motto, and it's not my motto. I don't necessarily condone violence, but they have to operate within a certain realm. And so their motto, Hamas's motto, literally is kill them first. If somebody's making a credible threat against a Jew or Israeli or the nation of Israel, they are very proactive. They've been all over the world assassinating people over the years and catching up with Nazi war criminals. They have gone into other countries posing as, there was a case where they went into a luxury hotel during a sports tournament. They posed as tennis players, and they went and whatever, and the girl took the guy to the room. And I mean, they had a glove. They described the glove. There's a glove with two razor blades built in it. And so they gave him some sleeping stuff, and he slept in the room. And then they went like this and this, and they have so many ways to eliminate their enemies. There was another one where they put some static on a terrorist phone. They implanted static every time he used it. They knew what repair shop and where he got it from, and they knew how they could get in and out of that shop pretty easily. They made him take it there overnight and get a loaner phone. Well, they went in that shop and they implanted in it C4. Then the very next day, when he used that phone, it took a call from one of the Mossad numbers. The second he said hello and it recognized his voice, it blew his head off his shoulders. So they are treacherous. And I've said, don't make a difference. You give up the hostages and surrender. Even if you don't surrender, Mossad will hunt you down on the ends of the earth and annihilate you. You will not get away with what happened on October 7th and the preaching of this hatred to annihilate an entire race of people for no reason. No reason
But
whatsoever.
You know what, Bill, to add what you just said, I was just got some very valuable information that I was naive to. That those people in Palestine and the Gaza Strip, they're raised to have those same beliefs.
Yes.
Of Hamas. I mean, it's like, and these young kids back here in these colleges that get those rights to come over here to go to school, and then they're protesting against our own people, and our biggest support, of course, in the Middle East is Israel, and they're so great with technology and stuff, and we need them there. We should be, like you said earlier, we've been hit with about 100 and some drones as targets. One of them, I think, now has put somebody gravely ill, or he may be dead, and we're just going to fire back one shot, 100 to 1. Does that sound like a fair ratio?
And for the first time ever, Iran has stepped up right after we finally struck back, because we killed, I think, in Syria with a drone, one of their generals, and struck back. Right. And so they said now that United States and Israel are going to regret that, and they're getting ready to retaliate. Well, so there was more attacks on our ships, and for the first time in history, I think it was from Yemen, a full-blown ballistic missile capable of destroying one of our major Navy ships was launched at one of them, and their countermeasures destroyed it before it got to the ship. But that was the first time in history. I think that occurred yesterday. They literally launched a ballistic missile over at one of our ships. That was pretty weird.
Yeah, but you know what, Bill? You know what, Bill? Mm-hmm. That's only playing defense. That's not offense. We got to go on the offense. We got to take out their oil reserves over there in Iran. Hit them there in the pocketbook. It'll give them a wake-up call that we're serious, not just firing back to take out some of their drones. That's just being defensive. We need to be offensive and show them that we mean business. Right. We're letting them get away with all those attacks. It's like it's no big deal. Oh, yes, it is a big deal. It's showing our weakness.
Yep, and we have an incompetent and completely corrupted president in charge who's letting all this stuff happen to us. 130-something attacks. It should take one before you strike back and make your point. 130? What the heck is wrong with this guy other than he wants you looking everywhere else except for him and his son's corruption, his family corruption? Because he knows on the last day in office, he's going to pardon everybody, himself included, and walk up the door and give the rest of us the finger, okay? And live in retirement, building his presidential library for the scheming presidents of the world. He is a disaster. And I'll tell you what, these protests, if you look, before Christmas, airports, Kennedy Airport, Chicago O'Hare, you have all these Palestine supporters. And by the way, there's no such thing as the country of Palestine. It doesn't exist even in history. So this is a fabrication that they've been putting out there for years. People who never studied history really believe there's a country of Palestine. It doesn't exist. So they block the entrance ramps so people cannot get home or away from town for the holidays, the busiest travel day of the year. They're laying down an interstate, the ramps, blocking an international airport, okay, from operating properly. These people, in my opinion, should all be rounded up and put in federal prison. And I've been looking into some of the charges because I was a law clerk in prison. They could be charged with interfering with air travel. That's a federal offense to interfere with air travels, is because that's federally regulated. Interfering with the interstate. And interstate is federal property. That's a second charge. And then giving care and comfort and support to a known terrorist group, Hamas / whoever. So there's 3 serious charges. Each one of them people who lay down on the interstate, and a hate crime. So the fourth thing, it could be enhanced because of the hate crime component. Those crimes, I think the sentencing could be doubled. So each one of them laying down that day probably could warrant about a 40-year sentence apiece. What are they doing to identify those people and go lock them up at their houses? Tell everybody, because when Trump comes in, what he needs to do is get all that footage and analyze it and round them all up. And then if you can't find someone, then put a reward up in the community in Chicago. Say, hey, turn this guy in $500, and I guarantee you their own brother, mother, father, sister will start turning these people in. Or their
Absolutely.
neighbors who happen to be Christian or Jewish, they'll turn them in because Trump's going after all of them with the law.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. And he should. And he needs a strong attorney general to back him up, without a doubt.
Yep.
He didn't have that while he was in. He didn't have that.
No, the law backs him up, and they do nothing about these things, and they let them harass the Jewish students. They're mostly a very peaceful, peace-loving people. They're very developed society. They've offered to help all their neighbors, but their neighbors only want to kill them. Come on, get over it already. Learn to get along, and that's all there is to it.
Let me tell you, Bill, about the Colorado vote to keep Trump off the ballots. What I think, from what I've had some learning from some very wise people, this goes back to the Civil War. And basically, they didn't want anybody that was engaged in the Civil War of killing our people and our people killing them. That's what the Civil War was all about.
Right.
And it's horrible because it was about slavery. The South wanted slavery, and the North was against it. So what do you got? They're fighting. They're going to go back to that Civil War case and use that. Now, the experts that I heard speak about this, they're thinking it should be a 9-0 vote in the United States Supreme Court, but I wouldn't doubt if it's 7-2, because 2 will cling to that Democratic Party because they got to show that they're loyal to them instead of doing what's right. But now the Republican Party in Colorado has filed a brief to to Colorado Supreme Court to let them know here's the objection. So you file one, so that when you go to United States Supreme Court, you've got closure because you followed the proper steps of protocol. Right. And that's very important. So they're going to see. I expect a 7-2. It should be 9-0 if they want to take politics out of it, because they keep talking about democracy. There's no democracy under Trump. Oh, really? What's worse than democracy and keeping somebody off the ballot that the people want to vote for? Right. Is that depriving them of their democracy and have a right to vote for who they want to vote for?
And this is what I said. A lot of Democrats are even getting on these liberal media arms and saying,
"Yep,
we want to beat him at the ballot box. Let's leave this out of the Supreme Court." You know why? It'll backfire on us when they don't want one of our candidates on the ballot. So they need to keep this door closed. All the other Supreme Courts, I think Michigan Supreme Court just ruled they're not even going to hear the case about keeping him off the ballot. And other states.
Bill, you're right on about Michigan. Now, that is a blue state. You know that.
Right.
I'd say blue. And so they got their own common sense to know that it's not going to fly. It's just wasting taxpayers' money to take it to the Michigan Supreme Court, because they know it doesn't hold water. It's that simple.
I think
they're just grasping for straws, Bill.
I think everybody should brainstorm the best, attorney minds in the country. And I don't like Alan Dershowitz. I know things about him that I don't like, and he is a Democrat, but he makes great arguments for the Republicans also. But
yes, he does.
People like him and others should make this argument that others should model their complaints after. And there must be in Colorado something like Judicial Qualifications Commission. There must be some way to get a complaint and get these people removed from the bench absent presidential intervention, because you're doing such a biased, illegal opinion that's based on him never even having a conviction for sedition. Was it sedition? I think it was. There was no conviction for that. He's not been convicted of anything, yet they relied on that to ban him from the ballot. And it was only designed for a certain period of time, that people that were actually on the battlefield, combatants, really wanted to overthrow the country, could not hold elected office, because, of course, then they run the risk of saying, okay, now I'm in power, I'm taking the country anyway. So that's what that was designed for. That's called there's the spirit and the letter of the law. And so the spirit of that law was something completely different than these such and such as in Colorado. We're trying to make believe it goes to it. And they have all these young college students that think they're so smart, that have no real life world history or common sense about them whatsoever, believing it.
Bill, do you know how the Colorado Supreme Court got to where they're at?
Uh-uh.
Did you know that they were not elected by the public, like our state courts are here in Ohio and most places around the country?
No.
They are appointed by the governor. So if the governor got control of that state, he appoints the state Supreme Court. I never heard of that before. Check it out.
No matter what party's in, they could stack the whole court.
There you go.
In one swoop.
And by the way,
the very next day, get rid of them and stack it with who they want.
Yeah, but let me tell you what I thought was amazing. The vote in that court, all Democrats, was 4-3. What's that tell you, Bill? They're all Democrats. Some of them Democrats realize that doesn't hold water, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, they're trying to do to Trump what they did to you and other people who are actually innocent. Anyway, Frank, what do you think of all that? I want to maintain my credibility by telling true stories, not somebody's falsehoods on here.
No, I think that's a great idea. It's a good concept. We got to do our due diligence to make sure that we are getting the information and it is the truth. We need verification because we're speaking the truth. You got to be able to back it up, and you got to back it up with evidence and do your homework. And so we're not making a fool out of anybody or trying to make somebody justifiable when they're not. So I think you get that and you understand that. You're on the right track. I just wanted to ask you one question. Do they still have that Innocent project? Is that still viable, Bill, that you know?
Yeah,
that was done by.
They're attached to many, many different universities around the country. The main one came out of the Cardozo School of Law, and Barry Scheck, one of the most prominent attorneys in the country, he founded it.
That's right.
And so those projects, well, here's what happens. I was a law clerk. A guy would say, I'm innocent, blah, blah, blah. Nobody would help me. Can you help me write the Innocence Project? Now, being a college-educated law clerk, I would say, sure, and I'd help tons of people. These Innocence Projects then mail in a packet of papers that's like 20 pages long to guys that are mostly, illiterate, and they want the history of the case, the nature of the case. They want the police report. They want the discovery. They want all this. It's very tedious for somebody with not much of an education. So I almost used to dread having to fill out the packets for these guys because they wanted so much information. And you don't know if they're lying or not, but their signature's going on it, not mine. So they would generally 4 or 5 months later get back a letter from the Innocence Project declining to help them because we only have the resources and, attorneys and students to help with the most serious cases, which includes life sentence cases, people who are death sentenced, or people who can prove they're innocent through DNA, actual innocence cases. They don't have the inclination to help people with a 30, 40, or 50-year sentence. It's very hard. So that's where I look at my role now since I've been released from prison. I want to try to help the guys that cannot get the attention of the Innocence Projects, but still have a lot of proof of their innocence. I want to help those people.
Good. I got it because they are ones that have been wounded, but nobody knows about it because they don't get they're not in the spotlight because of the length of sentence or the degree of the crime, But I think anybody that's innocent has a right to have their case examined and that when they were charged guilty and found guilty, and they got a right to speak up, and I think that needs to get out more and more so people will be more conscious of what's going on in the country.
Right. Yeah. I had a cellmate. I don't remember, was it you or maybe I was on the show with Ignacio last week. The guy was illiterate, couldn't read or write. I was moving in. He heard I was a law clerk. Did you hear about this last week?
No, I didn't hear about it.
So he said, look, man, jury found me guilty of everything except for the most serious charge, like the robbery with a gun. Bottom line, he couldn't read or write. He was up from Appalachia, the mountains in the western part of whatever Virginia.
West Virginia, you could say.
Yeah, Virginia, coal mine country, and nice, really nice guy. He's like you and me, stood on principle, right? He says, here's the problem. My girl was getting high and kept taking the car, and I'm paying the bills, and I couldn't get to work or whatever he was doing. So I went to her drug dealer's house, who she was messing around with for drugs, and went and got the car, and they confronted me. And so there was a scuffle. There was a shot fired, blah, blah, blah. So they charged me with robbing my own car. They're both working as informants for the cops, so they took their side instead of mine. I'm just trying to get my car back. You can keep my wife. She doesn't want to change or get off drugs, so keep her. I don't give a damn. I need my car. So the
Yeah.
jury believed him on that, but didn't agree with his technique of going to get the car. So they found him not guilty of the robbery, right? Well, the parole board, so he gets like 30 years in prison. So for 10, 20 years, he's been going up for parole every 2 to 5 years, and they keep denying him for one reason. He won't admit guilt or remorse on the robbery charge. And in his own voice, he's telling them, but the jury came back not guilty on that. I didn't rob anybody. It was my car, and it was just a blow up that got out of control. And I'm not going to sit here. I'm a man of principle. I'm not going to remorse for doing an armed robbery that day, which I didn't do. And here's,
Yeah.
the jury says I didn't do it. This went on forever. So he tells me the story. I says, look, let me unpack my stuff. When we lock down tonight, at the end of the night, the accountant or whatever, take as much time as you need. Tell me what's the story. So he tells me that story. I said, do you mind if I take this approach? I'll write a letter. You look it over. You sign off on it. Everything you just told me. We're going to include your jury verdict in that letter. And it's going to go out to every politician in the state of Virginia and every media outlet in the state of Virginia. So we're going to send out about 50 to 75 letters, maybe more. He said, sure, no problem. Whatever you want to do, because everybody promises to help me. They just want commissary or they want money. And these guys don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to get me to court. They don't know how to, appeal properly to the parole board. They keep denying me. And I said, we're going to take a unique approach. You're entitled to like emergency hearing of certain cases, certain situations. And we're going to put so much pressure that their reason for denying you is based upon something that you were never convicted of. We're going to embarrass them to give you that emergency hearing. We did it. It wasn't 3 weeks later where this guy got an emergency hearing and emergency release from prison. I told all these people what happened to him. I said, they're trying to make him express remorse for something he was not convicted of. Here's the verdict form. Check with the clerk of court. It's real. We didn't create this in prison. This is a real document. They released that man finally. Every time he went to parole, he was getting hit with denial. So there's so many horrible cases in prison, and people are broke, or they don't have loved ones that'll help them, or they can't afford an attorney. And there's one case after the other. And so people like me who really want to try to help, you got to be careful what you're running into, because when you're dealing with police corruption and prosecutorial corruption, especially when I was on parole, I was a little concerned about doing those type of cases, but I'm done. All that's in my rearview mirror now. And there's good police everywhere. There's good prosecutors everywhere. But we all know there's issues with some of them.
I'm glad that we have the opportunity to give our own personal opinions. And that's that freedom of speech, but they are what we personally believe in. And if somebody's handing us a bunch of lies, shame on them. But we develop an opinion of it. It's just based on what they told us. It's not us saying it's a fact or not. It's just what our opinion is. Right, Bill?
Right. So I have this outgoing personality. I drive the black Cadillac. I have still a little bit of a New York accent. So, I'm in the Midwest now. The people here are so nice. But he is this retired, or whatever, convicted and disgraced doctor who still has that Midwestern, oh, golly shucks persona, where he could easily demonize a guy like me, but just because of the environment I'm in. But my pastor gets it. The law enforcement people involved, they get it. They understand, and the people who knew me from my past know the different person I am today. Nobody's like him is going to destroy it or damage it. I noticed you have a snazzy shirt on today, and we're missing buttons. What happened to buttons?
Well, I left her in the other room just in case she started barking, and I didn't want that to interrupt your fine monologue. It's just this. I think I'm going to start bringing her with me every time because I love her and I miss her already. So as soon as I get off of here, I'm running in there. I'm going to pick her up, give her a hug, and she's going to follow me around.
I'm going to bring you up to speed on a few things. And if you need to do a monologue one day and get something off your chest, you say, Bill, I'm going to go a little long on this, but this is something that's been going on. And for him to harass us right before Christmas and directly on the anniversary of a loved one's being murdered, and everybody was in a very bad state that day.
Right.
End of the line. I'm done staying quiet about it.
That's right.
What is that shirt? That's your business shirt, I think.
Yeah, that's one of them. That's one of the businesses that I had. So I get to wear that and show it off once in a while, and I do. But I thank you. I thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to continue working with you. You've got a wealth of knowledge. We know that the bond we have together is because we visited familiar places that most people don't get to visit, thank God. But it's good to see the other side of the world and how they live and think and how they act. And it's just a great experience that you can't pay for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we don't hide our faith. We're both Christians. And I think the best thing that's ever happened to me is accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Now, if this guy can call me a hypocrite and a phony and all this stuff, and people do, listen, I know I'm definitely a screwed up, fallible, even hypocritical human being and Christian sometimes. But I already know how far I've come. I'm not the person I used to be. And hopefully I'll improve every day. I don't mean to offend anybody along the journey, but I am still a fallible man. So, but
and I see what you're saying. You're exactly right. And you know what, Bill? We all sin and fall short. The big difference to me is you're convicted. You know it, and you immediately ask for forgiveness. It's the times that we didn't know it, and we just kept doing it over and over. That's where the change comes in at when you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior.
Yeah, this particular guy we're talking about came out of a Mormon background and says he's a Christian now, but like this, every letter is like calling me a phony Christian and a con artist and a liar. And where's my affidavits? And I remember where you live, and I'm gonna drive. I drove by your house or whatever. When are you guys moving? I see you're still there, or And then after, in the middle of his tirades and telling me off, all of a sudden an invitation to go to a church service the other day, and I'm like, I wouldn't set foot in the same church this guy is in. For my own sanity, for my own safety, for the safety of my loved ones, I wouldn't do it any longer. I just won't do it. Again, he was given ample opportunity to simply apologize and say, hey, I really screwed up, but here's what I do now you need help with. You know what? We would have been there for him 100%. But when I catch in all those lies trying to destroy my new life out of prison, trying to build credibility, he's cost me business deals with people already because they didn't know which side to believe, and they believed his BS initially. Now they know, though. So, I will say this for the record: our opinions, Frank and my opinions, are our own. They're not YouTube's opinions or any of those platforms, TV shows. Frank, anything else you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to monologue about for a minute?
No, I think we're good, Bill. I enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to getting in the other room, pick up my little baby over there. She's waiting for me.
Don't forget.
That's Buttons.
Let her go in there for a minute. My audience loves your dog. Let's see her for a second. Can you get her in there for a second? Can somebody get her for you? Open the door. Can somebody open the door?
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on.
So he's going to get Buttons. Wait till you see his sidekick, his partner in crime, his little partner, Buttons. Uh-oh, I hear the door. Hey, and Frank, if you can hear me, don't forget you left your phone somewhere. You need to go pick it up before they close. All right, so he has a beautiful dog, a rescue dog named Buttons. And so if you look at my thumbnail from last week, you'll see Buttons on there, just as happy as can be sitting on Frank's lap. And thank you for watching. Please check out Frank's books. My books are in the description. Links available on Amazon and our websites. And there is Buttons Lordi, rescue dog. You got
a little baby, Humpy.
That's right. You got a big grin on your face. Put that face right into the camera. Let's see a close up of that face. Go like that, right into the camera.
Over here. Oh, this way. This way. Which way am I going, Bill? Left or right? There we go.
See, he looks sleepy. With that being said, everybody's got a smile on their face. Frank, you can come on more than once a week. We'd love to have you. Hello to everybody. I hope you had a blessed Christmas. I know you had family in town. You have a lot of joy going on. We all have struggles going on with family and illnesses and all this stuff. So I keep you and your family in prayers, and I'm grateful to call you friend and co-host.
I do the same for you, Bill.
Absolutely.
I value your friendship.
We'll circle back anytime you want to do a show. If I have to shave for it, I'll do it because I don't like to get on the show with no shave. That's one thing I hate.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
All right.
Tell Mary we said hello and
tell everybody
best wishes and happy New Year for you two guys too as well.
Absolutely. Okay? Bye, Buttons. Bye. Great seeing you again,
blessed
Frank.
New Year.
You too. Okay, God bless.
All right. God bless.